football podcast on Penn Live. We're live today. It's our Thursday session. If you're tuning in, drop us some questions, some comments in the chat. We want to hear them. Bob has been waiting all week to get back to answering some live questions in this chat.
Impatiently waiting too, not patiently, impatiently waiting. So hopefully somebody will come up with some Penn State football questions for me as we get closer. I'm ready.
Yeah. Bob, the heat wave, it's kind of still here. Last week you mentioned that you thought it wasn't going to stick around, but it's still pretty hot.
Yeah, the only good news is that it's very slowly, and I do mean slowly, tapering off. I think Monday when we recorded, I think it was like 95. Then Tuesday it went to, I think, 98. Yesterday it was like 93. They said it was only going to be 89 today, but now I just looked, it's supposed to be 91. There is some cooler temperatures expected over the next few days, and they are welcome by me. They are welcome. Max, I know you said it's hot up there, but I'm telling you, in the city of Harrisburg, where there are no trees and no breeze, see what I did there?
Yep.
It does feel like the heat index is about 10 degrees warmer. But you know what? I'm just complaining. I don't want to complain, Max. I'm ready. I heard you were going to try and put me on the spot. I know we're going to talk basketball, a little bit about the Penn State schedule. I know they got a big tight end, shocking. This one from Minnesota. So let's get into it, man.
Yeah, let's do it. Okay, so basketball first, because I don't think we'll spend a whole lot of time on it. Yeah. But some history. I mean, it's program history, Bob, which is, in any regard, interesting because,
Penn State's got a pretty storied program, so this is a big deal.
That's right. So Yanic, Konan, Niederhauser, the 7-footer who.
What was the name again?
Yanic, Konan, Niederhauser.
Wow, I could not have done that. Good for you.
Yeah. Yep, he's really good kid. Came here to Penn State just for this one season from Northern Illinois. He got drafted in the first round last night, 30th overall to the Clippers of Los Angeles. Bob, maybe we'll be able to pay him a visit when Penn State's out at UCLA.
Yeah.
But no, so he went in the first round. First round pick in Penn State program history, which obviously, as you alluded to, not a storied program by any means, but been around for a long time. So becoming the first round pick is pretty cool. Like I said, he's a good kid. Came in and really showed off some elite athleticism in his only year here. Decided he was going to test the NBA draft waters and come back if things didn't go his way. He was going to come back to Penn State. And they did go his way. He went to the G League Elite Camp, really put on a show there, and then got an invite to the official NBA Combine and continued to do well there. And, I mean, look, kid's a first-round pick. He's going to make a heck of a lot of money, and that's a really good spot to be in for him. So some history for Penn State, really interesting. It's never happened before, so it's crazy. I believe it's now 3 straight years with a draft pick for Penn State. The previous high in the modern era was Jalen Pickett, 32nd overall with the Denver Nuggets, which he's gone on and carved a little bit of a role out there in Denver and even won a NBA Finals, a couple of years ago. So, pretty interesting, Bob. I don't think you're much of an NBA guy.
I do have 2 questions for you because you're a basketball fan. You probably don't know this because you've only been at Penn Live a short time, but I am a well-documented Dallas Mavericks fan since their first year in 1980. I don't know how they pulled that number 1 overall. I don't care, 1.8%. You can't tell me there was some collusion there to get a pretty prominent franchise. Because if they had not gotten Cooper Flagg, it was looking pretty dire in Dallas because their best players are also in their early to mid 30s, and they are getting raked over the coals for that Luka trade. I had mixed feelings about Luka. I know this is a Penn State podcast. I'll just keep it brief. I could kind of see why they might wanted to get rid of him. I just don't think they got enough for him, although they did get the lottery pick. But Max, I'm burying the lead. Yeah. Here's my question for you. How is it possible that Rutgers was not an elite team with those 2 guys going early in the draft? How is that possible?
Uh, I think the bottom line is, Bob, that the Big Ten is just a whole different universe
Okay.
than the NBA. It's almost like they play football in the Big Ten, but on the basketball court, and that is simply not the NBA game.
40% of their starters were high first round picks. 40%.
I know, and they're just really good athletes too themselves. Harper missed a few games during the year. But we saw him play against Penn State, and I mean, you can understand why they became first round picks because super athletes with a ton of potential. But it baffles a lot of people, not just you, Bob.
Okay.
And I think the style of the Big Ten is really the bottom line there. It's more physical. It's a different game. It's, in my opinion, why the Big Ten hasn't won anything in college basketball in a while. I mean, obviously, Michigan State made a run last year. Purdue made a run. They've had they've had success, but they haven't gotten over the hump in a long time. And I think that the style is a big reason why. And I think that plays into Rutgers' lack of success last year. But yeah, that's where I think it comes from.
Okay. Fair enough. I think we got some recruiting to get to. Finally, some good news for Penn State, right?
Yeah, that's absolutely right, Bob. Peterson. It reads like Peterson, and I just got off the phone with his head coach out there in Minnesota, Peterson. A tight end prospect has committed to Penn State. He plays quarterback in high school, and he's a dang good one. I mean, you can put the tape on. He's an impressive athlete. He does a lot of good things at quarterback, but he also plays basketball. Really good basketball player. Here's this number for you, Bob. 86 dunks as a junior is what his head coach, Brandon Nesseth, told me.
Wow.
86 dunks. And he goes to a school that has about 300 enrolled between 9 through 12. So you're in the small school circuit in Minnesota.
Big fish, small pond. I like it.
There's a kid that's putting up 86 dunks in a season out there, but he's a 4-star. He came down to Minnesota and Penn State for his decision, chose Penn State, said, his head coach told me, just really love the relationships out there at Penn State. Ty Howell did a great job in this recruitment, which is of little surprise as we've gotten to know since Ty Howell's become such a prominent piece of this staff. He does a really good job in a lot of different ways, but it's a win for Penn State. And Bob, this is kind of a trend for Penn State because Tyler Warren was a quarterback in high school. Luke Reynolds was a quarterback in high school. Matt Henderson, I believe, was a wide receiver. But these tight ends, they've all kind of been projectable guys that they've had success with over the years. And here's another one.
Big athletes. The emphasis with James Franklin and his staff at every position, really. Even offensive line, athleticism, right? Athleticism, size. And Penn State's had some pretty good tight ends, obviously, before James Franklin got here. But the way that the game is going and the way that the tight ends used to be able to block a lot, and that's not really necessarily the priority. They're big receivers, they are big slots or what they can do. Tyler Warren could line up anywhere. But yeah, you want a 240, 250 pounder. Theo Johnson would be another guy who's just a really, really good athlete. Mike Gesicki. You want guys who can make contested catches, who can be matchup problems, and can kind of block a little bit. So they don't have to be dominant blockers, but they do have to be matchup problems. I do like the quarterback angle that you're pursuing. That's clearly a thing for Penn State. And I'm just going to say this, and it's rare that I get to say this. So you have a Minnesota kid going to State College for a variety of reasons. James Franklin, playing there in big time program. Ty Howell, a former offensive lineman at Penn State, doing a great job bringing him there. But the overlooked factor, Max, and I think the Penn State fans know this, he is essentially, because he's from Minnesota, going to a warm weather climate in the winter. Am I right?
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
It's actually going to be warmer for him in the winter.
How about that? You really don't get to say that.
2 degrees, not a problem for this guy. He'll be prowling around in shorts. That is just not a big deal for guys who are used. He's probably used to minus 25.
Yeah, not at all. I also learned something interesting somewhat on the topic of, regional preferences and customs, they call Minnesota the U out there in Minnesota, which I had never heard before. So
The University of Scranton, where I'm from, they call it the U.
Yeah,
Up in northeastern Pennsylvania. I don't think it just belongs to Miami.
that's what I thought it was, being from Ohio and then coming over to Penn State. That was the U meant Miami in my head. So
Max, are there any other pending things coming on the recruiting trail for Penn State? Imminent. I guess imminent would be the word.
There are. So Friday, there's two big ones. Friday, we're recording on Thursday. We are live. A reminder, if you're in the chat, make sure, send us some questions, comments our way. We'll get to them.
Yeah.
We're recording on a Thursday. If you're watching later, Friday, tomorrow, there are two big names set to come off of the board. Malvern Prep defensive end Jackson Ford, and New Jersey St. Augustine Prep defensive tackle Damari Simeon. I hope I've said that correctly. Both of those guys are really high-level defensive linemen, Bob, and it's a position where Penn State could really use a win, because obviously Luke Wafel went away last week, and Daniel Jennings, who is a really good player and a great prospect, was part of this 26 class and is now, not quite yet on campus, but reclassified to 25, and we've heard a lot about him from the coaching staff and everything. So they're without a defensive end right now, and Jackson Ford is a strong in-state player, a guy I think Penn State is maybe in the driver's seat for, leading up to his commitment. Simeon's an interesting one because it's a battle between Ohio State, Penn State, and Texas. He has been on their radar for a long time, and they don't necessarily need a defensive tackle direly. They've got two committed that are talented guys, a little bit under the radar, in Alex Haskell and Isaac Chukura. But Simeon's a really good player, and Penn State will never not want to add good players. So, Bob, this class, I know, Johnny and I are more on the recruiting front than you, but this class is top 10 right now, a couple of names trending, but, they're in a pretty good spot. Obviously, they were going to wish that some of those top 100 type guys could have come into this class and pushed it over the edge. But we're in this, it seems like a yearly occurrence where official visits end. They miss out on a couple of top guys. Everybody panics. Then a few more guys commit that are pretty good prospects, such as Pierce Petershawn. And then it all kind of evens out in the end with a top 10, top 15 class. And, things look okay.
Yeah, and I would just say that he says it a lot, but it really is true. You just look at James's track record with his staff and his strength staff and their ability to develop players that maybe aren't perceived as the top talents at their positions when they get there.
Yeah.
But it really, Max, it dates back to almost his first season at Penn State. I don't know that you really followed the 2014 Nittany Lions very closely. I was already established. That was like my 13th year on the beat. But they had a player that when James got here, he was midway through his career, and he was a part-time defensive end. And they kicked Anthony Zettel inside the defensive tackle. And if you look at what he did, he was first team All Big Ten pick, played in the NFL. The next year, they did it again with Carl Nassib, All-American, not a big profile recruit. I think Penn State has a pretty good idea of what they can develop and who they want to develop. And I think you just need to give Penn State the benefit of the doubt, even if it doesn't look like they got the best kids. By the end of the day, when all is said and done, the guys are going to play like they got the best kids.
Yeah, I'm with you. Anthony Zettel and Carl Nassib, obviously names that, despite me being a teenager at the time, certainly popped into my brain, and I was well aware of.
Okay.
One thing I wanted to just add on that, and with the top recruits going elsewhere, Penn State is a great developmental program, has targeted and scouted really well. I think we were getting some grief in our comments last week, Bob, or maybe it was Monday, about saying that some of the recruitment for guys like Joey O'Brien and Kari Adams comes down to money. And the bottom line is, like, it's not all money, but it's true. Penn State is not
Actually, that was pretty much just you. But yeah, I will say that I had a little bit of a hand in that. But I get it. I keep going.
I'm just doubling down here, and
Okay.
I hope that I get some more comments because I'm built for it. But
Okay.
no, look, it's not just money. I mean, I complimented Marcus Freeman and his program quite a bit on Monday, but Penn State is not always playing in the same ballpark with these recruits. That's just the bottom line. They do a great job with guys who are developmental prospects, and they're able to go out and attract top talent in a lot of cases with reasons that include money. But when there are huge numbers being thrown out to a guy like Luke Wafel, or whoever you want to add in, Penn State's not going there right now. It's just a fact. And Notre Dame attracted those kids not just for money. I mean, a school like USC or an Oregon could have and probably did throw larger dollars out at them. And Notre Dame attracted them because it's a good program. Like those are things. But Penn State, in a little bit of a different ballpark. But a guy like Pierce Peterson, not necessarily under the radar prospect because of his athleticism. I mean, a lot of schools have been on him, but a kid that they built relationships with in a short amount of time really impressed him and the family on the recruiting trail. And money was not necessarily a factor. It just depends on the kid. It goes a lot of different ways. There's so many different factors that everybody is paying attention to out here. So, all right, Bob, I have dominated some recruiting talk. It's time to put you on the spot.
Not at all. Not at all. All right. I'm ready to be put on that spot. Also, I was thinking of possibly putting you back on the spot again at the very end. It just depends on how much time we have left. I know that we're 17 minutes in. I prefer to be put on the spot this time, but if there's a little bit of a gap there at the end, I have a quite, and I could save it. I could save it for down the line. This is an evergreen put Max or Johnny on the spot query, but I think it's a fair query, and it will. I guarantee you that no one will probably answer that this question the same way. But I can table it until after you're done with me.
Okay. All right. Well, I just want to know, because you've been diving into the schedule heavily and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Is Indiana a one-time thing, or are they going to bring it this year?
I am glad you said that, because if you asked me about the schedule, one of the games that interests me the most that maybe doesn't interest the fan base, it's probably the Indiana Hoosiers.
Yeah.
I really like Signetti.
Mm-hmm.
I do think he knows what he's doing. But not by choice, really. He's going to at least, I don't know how long he's going to be at Indiana. If he has another big year, it might be a 2 off, because the guy could actually really coach.
Yeah.
He did it at a lower level, but he did it very well. He lived in the transfer portal primarily with his guys from, I think it was James Madison, and it paid off hugely last year. I think they started 10-0. That Ohio State loss could have been a little bit closer than the final score indicated. Things didn't go their way.
Yeah.
Nebraska or Notre Dame was just a little bit. By that time, Notre Dame was playing so well. They tried to stay close. I think it was 27-17. It really wasn't that close of a game. But I do think that they are a team to watch, especially because they will be, I believe, Penn State's going to host them after the Ohio State game, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's a game where you're like, is Penn State really going to be firing on all cylinders after they put everything into the Ohio State game? But they imported a pretty good quarterback, I believe, from Cal. And I think they were very excited about him coming out of spring. The other thing is, no one really talks about their defense, and they got 3 really good players at all 3 levels coming back that were first team all Big Ten picks. I think that how I would view Indiana, as long as Signetti is there, I think they are a team that will be in the top 20 to top 25 conversation. Now, I don't know that they'll be in the top 10 conversation, just because it's a pretty thick forest of the teams you got to climb over. But I do think that, I do not know that they're going to go 11-2 this year, but I think that when they play their best game, they're going to be a tough out for just about every team on the schedule. I do think they're going to. If you got to go to Beaver Stadium, this is when they're going to Beaver Stadium after the Penn State goes to Ohio State. It's probably about as good a time as they can to go. Tom Allen in Indiana, with probably lesser talent, came very, very close, and I mean very close to upsetting Penn State in 2023 at Beaver Stadium. I think they crawled back to tie it, and then Drew teamed up with who else but Keandre Lambert-Smith for a long, long, long pass that kind of swung it, and they added a safety. I do think, though, Indiana is a team that I'll be curious about that point spread. I don't think the way that he coaches that they're going to be scared of anyone. Yeah. And I do think that if Penn State brings their B- game, they could be in trouble in that game. I do think Indiana will be one of the better teams in the Big Ten this year.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, gosh, you bring up that 2023 game. That was the day Drew Aller threw his first career interception as well, right?
Yeah, all kinds of stuff. Tom Allen on the other sideline. Yep. I just was like, oh my God, they're going to lose this game. And
I know.
And they threw that long pass. It wasn't the prettiest long pass that Drew's ever thrown, but I thought the momentum was clearly on the Hoosier side fairly late in that game. But the Hoosiers, every once in a while, under Tom Allen, including the 2020 game that Penn State fans hate, could jump up and bite you a little bit. So I think Cignetti's a good coach. I don't know how much longer he's going to be there because I still don't think Indiana is ever really good. It's going to be tough for them to recruit. Yeah. And I don't know what their revenue, I don't know what they got going on with the revenue and whether they're going to be able to spend money. But as long as he's there, I just think that he's a guy with a plan. He knows what he's doing. He knows who can play. He knows how to kind of game plan. So I think it's going to be one of the tougher games on Penn State's schedule, and I do think that Cignetti is legit.
I agree. Like he said very bluntly, he wins. Look him up. He has.
It's refreshing for him to say that.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Because once you say that, you got to back it up.
Yeah,
otherwise you're going to be like a laughing stock.
I agree. I think some college football coaches need these days to have a little more personality. He can be looked at in a few different ways, whether you like it or you don't. But it just feels like so many of these guys have entered the robotic presence in the media and just like not giving anything away. And so it's fun to have a guy who's willing to let it all hang out for a little while. So I do appreciate that. Indiana's an interesting one. Last season, so good, but they had a really favorable schedule, of course. And obviously their non-con is really weak again, which I've said multiple times is the right way to go about this thing. But it's just a fact. So, I'm very curious to see where they're at again. I think they've got some support at that university. You mentioned the rev sharing. That's a really interesting one because, if you compare it to Penn State, a lot more of that rev share money has to go to basketball than what Penn State's going to do here, because obviously Indiana basketball, a big thing. But Hoosiers are always an interesting team for me as well. They were either my second or third choice to go to college. Fun fact.
Heard that Bloomington itself is I was actually only in Bloomington once before a Penn State game because usually we stay out in Indianapolis by the airport.
Yeah.
But it was pretty wild. Those students get after it. Like it's a pretty crazy school. But the stadium itself was never. I mean, it was all Penn State fans before. Yeah. You know what I mean? It was almost like and it's just so. Indiana is a little bit bleak. It's not a great travel destination, and even Indianapolis, I'd go there. But other than that, I don't know that I'm really going to give out any recommendations. But when the time comes to talk about Big Ten travel destinations for fans, even with the expanded, even with the California schools in here, I don't know that Bloomington's make it in my top 10.
I think Bloomington's a good college town, but Bob, I just got to say, be careful there. A lot of the Ralph heritage runs through Indiana. So
sometimes out of like Batman, like out of just tragic circumstances. Sometimes greatness is born. So it's not necessarily it really isn't necessarily where you begin. It's really where you end. So it doesn't surprise me that the Ralph name has the great Ralph name has gotten better and better. But that's a tough area. That could be a tough area to start out.
Fair enough. Fair enough. You want another schedule question, or you want to hit me with yours? We got a few more minutes here.
I'm gonna hit you with mine.
Okay, let's
All
do
right.
it.
I'm putting you on the spot. So, of the current Penn State team,
Yeah.
if you had to pick 3 players off the current Penn State team that will be draft eligible,
Okay.
and you're trying to start an NFL team,
Okay.
who are your first 3 picks?
My first 3 picks of
Mhm.
draft eligible players.
Mm-hmm.
Drew Aller. I mean, I don't think that should get any pushback. I mean, I think obviously he's got flaws, but for the tools that he has as a quarterback, the ball security he's shown over the years, the leadership he's grown into at this point, he has everything you'd want on paper for a guy to start an NFL franchise with. Whether that pans out or not, we'll see. But I think that's a pretty obvious one. I think Deni Dennis Sutton it should be the obvious number 2 because of having a game-breaking edge rusher in football these days, whether it's college or NFL. It completely changes the calculus for both teams, for your own defense, for the offense. And I certainly think DDS can become that guy. He needs to put a little more production in the regular season this year, in my opinion, but I certainly think that he can be that guy. The third one, I think, is a much tougher conversation because you go for the 2 positions that are arguably most impactful in the game these days.
This is why it's called putting you on the spot, by the way. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I get it. I get it. I'm between 2. Let me say I'm between 2.
Yeah, but at the end, you have to decide between the 2. You can mention them both, but you can't say there's a tie.
And I'll make my choice, but I'm going to mention 2 of them. I'm between A.J. Harris at cornerback, and I'm between Drew Shelton at tackle. Because offensive line, a premium, always need good players. Drew Shelton has been so consistent over his career. A.J. Harris is a little more of an upside play at the moment. He played well last year, but the athleticism is unbelievable. I think he's going to have a huge year this year. I'll go with Drew Shelton because I think having a solid offensive lineman and a tackle especially is more valuable than a corner, just in the NFL game these days. Not to disparage A.J. Harris in any way, but if I have to take 3, I'll go Drew Aller, Deni Dennis Sutton, and Drew Shelton. And I think that there are a lot of different ways you could go because, Bob, I'm going to take a guess and say Zachy Wheatley's in your top 3.
He is not. The safety position is become so much more important, just like in the college game, space game, play multiple positions. Kevin Winston. I was thinking, I think I got him confused with the old Indiana coach. Anyway, if Kevin Winston's healthy, he's going to go quite a bit higher than he did in last year's draft. I did think about Harris. Drew Aller is not in my top 3.
Really?
He is not in my top 3. I'm talking about guys that I'm starting my team and I don't have. To me, they've shown me enough that I don't have any questions.
Okay.
I think Drew still has, for all his talent, Drew still has a question or 2 to answer.
Okay.
And if he does answer it, in January, you ask me the question, I will answer it. Not that he isn't on the short list, but in my mind, there are 3 players on this roster that I have like no questions about.
Yeah.
Deni is the clear number 1 for me.
Okay.
What sealed it for me was once he got healthier from the groin injury, what he did against Boise and Notre Dame. That
Notre Dame game was
spectacular. He's number 1. Venga is number 2, the guard who can move. Offensive guards, if you look at the NFL salaries for free agents, they're getting paid, man.
They are.
A mobile guard who can be an impactful player versus the run and pass and play for 10 years, which I think Venga can do. I do think the guard position is a little bit more important than it was 5 to 10 years ago. And then I'm glad that you have Drew Shelton on your list because he is my third player.
Okay.
I don't have any questions about Drew Shelton at all playing left tackle, and I still think he still has another level he can get to, I think those three are not only among the most talented players at their positions, not only in the Big Ten but in the country this year. They're the safest to me. I just think I think if they stay healthy, they can all play a long time, and I just think as much as I think Drew could be a top 10 pick, I do think that. And it's, I think there's a lot of people that just want to see it. They want to see it. They want to see it in a big game. They want to see it against a good defense. That he's got the coordinator. He's got the offensive line. He's got the running game. He's got the receivers, I think, this year. And I would include the tight ends in that. And I can certainly reserve my right to put him in my top three. But right now, I mean, those three players that I just mentioned, I just feel really, really good about. And I think they're all, if they're healthy, they're going to have spectacular years. So those are my three backs.
Bob, you're absolutely right. A lot of people still need to see it with Drew, but I'll tell you what, a lot of NFL GMs need to hit on something like that. There's a reason why Will Levis was a second-round pick. You know, like there's a reason why Anthony Richardson was a first-round pick. Drew Aller is going to go in the top 10 next year.
Very probably, very likely. I don't disagree with you. I'm just saying, if you were the GM,
that's fair. That's fair.
Okay.
I'm laying my job on the line and taking Drew 1-1. So, all right. In a draft full of Penn State players.
Oh, yeah, okay. I thought you meant I thought number one overall in extra draft, because that would be pretty bold.
I mean, it could certainly happen. I'm not ready to say it on June 26th.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way.
Yeah. I'll feel a lot better. I would feel a lot better. Once November 1st comes and goes, I'd feel a lot better about that. But look, it's not going to go away until we see him do some damage against a pretty good defense. It just it's not been all of his fault, because they have not had the weapons he had last year at wideout certainly did not help him, even though he had Tyler Warren. But I just think he's got the pieces around him this year that he should be able, with that talent, to root out a win for Penn State in the fourth quarter against a good team if he has to. And if he does that, like, I think your top 10 overall pick is not only spot on, he might be a top 5 guy. So we'll see. It's going to be fun to watch this play out, because at some point, as good as Penn State might be, Max, he's going to be in a spot. He's going to be in a spot where he has to do it. I'm excited to see it. I hope he does it. Yeah,
John and I have had that same conversation on these podcasts. At some point, it's going to come down to Drew Aller having to win a football game. And he really hasn't done it yet this year. So, or to his career, I mean, he hasn't really done it yet. So it'll be interesting. But I think that's going to do it for us here on the Blue White Breakdown. A little bit of recruiting talk, some Penn State basketball history we hit on, some scheduling notes. Let us know. Do you believe in the Indiana Hoosiers in the Big 2025? I think Bob's a yes. I'm still a little skeptical.
Like I said, for me, it starts at the top with the coach. If he found his quarterback, and this kid has some pretty good tools.
Yeah.
I think he can scheme people up, and I do think that what he can do can cause a lot. I think his value I think he might be a top 10 coach in college football already. I don't think he's perceived that way, but I do think after this year, if they win 8, 9, 10 games somehow, then he can probably name his price.
Yeah. Well, let us know, folks, in the comments. Is Indiana legit this year? Your thoughts on Curt Cignetti? That was a big topic today for us.
Yeah.
Like and subscribe on YouTube if you're watching live. Appreciate you all tuning in. We're here every Thursday at noon, whether it's me and Bob, whether it's me and Johnny, whether it's Johnny and Bob, come chat at us. Thanks for tuning in.
Right.
And if you're watching recording, get us wherever you get your podcasts. So appreciate it, everybody. Take care.